Thank you for your persistence in the beginning.
My pleasure.
Thank you for today. Um, I'm going to remind folks that you can put your questions in the Q&A thing in Zoom, or you can put them in the chat, and Summer is going to be looking at the app and helping with that too. So yeah, feel like you have the space to ask some questions, and we will make sure that we bring them up. So Damon, thank you for sort of giving our live section a good solid base. Um, I think that's so necessary for people to be coming from a spot where we can have shared information and shared knowledge,
Mhm.
so that we can limit miscommunication, because that miscommunication is inevitable because we're human. Um,
Mhm.
but if we're with this shared information, it makes it less. Um, from from our day today,
Mhm.
one of the things that I would love to talk about is like how to put it plainly, like how do people fuck it up?
Um, One way that I think people fuck it up is by not trying at all. Um, there's no manual for this. There's no, and when I say this I'm referring to interrupting oppression, or interrupting oppressive dynamics. When we hear something racist, we hear something sexist, we hear something homophobic, or see something happening, so often, and I'm going to speak for myself, so often I get caught off guard by it. It happens when I'm pushing my grocery cart back to the its collective place, and I see or hear something. I'm not expecting it to take place in a freaking parking lot, and yet it does. I'm not expecting to hear these things from a student in my classroom when we're writing poetry, and yet it happens. So, what I think people often get wrong is thinking about how it has to be done the right way. I don't have the right words, I don't know the right way to frame it, and so they don't say anything at all. So that's one way. Another way is to lead with emotion. Um, to immediately go to a place of, and not to say that you can't get angry or can't get frustrated, but to lead with that, you're a horrible person. What kind of, that sort of thing is not going to change anything anyway. But I would rather folks get angry and say something out of anger than to not say anything at all.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing is also, I think, seeing it as I need to change this person, as opposed to I just simply want to interrupt this dynamic. I often think about movies and TV shows where a bully has been picking on a kid for a long time, and all of a sudden, one other kid who happens to be like the smallest says, "If you're gonna do that to him, you gotta come through me." And there's no way in hell that that one little kid by himself is going to win over the bully.
Yeah.
But often you'll see in those movies other small kids pop up and say the same thing.
Yeah.
Think of it in that same sort of way. Simply by that one person starting it, it gives permission to others to say something as well. It also stops it for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily meaning that this bully is going to stop being a bully because of that one interaction, but it slowed it down in that one instance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily about having the right, there are no right words. I get this stuff wrong all the time. But the point is to verbalize and vocalize some sort of action, some sort of wording that demonstrates this is not okay and I'm not okay with this.
Yeah. Denise asked, sometimes I want to interrupt, but I fear for my own safety or my job security. As a
Mm-hmm.
brown, queer, Latin female, what do
Mm-hmm.
we do in these situations?
One, your safety always, always,
Mm,
always, always, always comes first.
right.
Two, as a brown and queer person, I don't think it's necessarily our fight. It is and it isn't at the same time. What we need is more co-conspirators. We need more, not so much allies, but accomplices. We need folks who have privilege to be the ones that are standing up or moving forward or making their voices heard more often. Um, it's been said numerous times since the election happened about essentially how black women have saved the country. Well, black women didn't do it for those who are privileged. Black women did it for their own survival.
Mm,
So when I'm rising up within, when I'm fighting in regards to racism, I'm fighting for myself. I'm fighting for my sister. I'm fighting for my nephews. Now, when I'm rising up within my own privilege to speak out against sexism or homophobia or transphobia, that's me rising up within my privilege, and we need more people within their privilege to do the same. But again, if you're a person who is uh, living within oppression, your job is to survive.
mm,
Do what you need to do to survive.
yeah.
Um, Within that, there's also room. So maybe in that moment, it's not safe for you to do something, but maybe there's action that can be taken later on the next day, reaching out to someone else within your company, seeking legal action, or just simply taking care of yourself. But it's never too late to say or do something.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Denise.
Yeah. Um, when we are in these spaces and we realize that the people making the decisions um, are some of the typical people making the decisions in all of these spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you have any advice on how to bring that up in those spaces?
Um, I think it starts with asking questions
Yeah.
and being honestly curious, not accusatory, but honestly curious. And again, this also depends on your level of privilege and what level of agency you have within that organization,
Mhm.
and also your own level of comfort. Granted, often this stuff is going to feel uncomfortable, but some people are much more comfortable in roles of confrontation than others. So I often aim towards questions. So I'm noticing that while the body of people in this room are relatively diverse, that I notice the people at the head table only hold one or two specific identities. And I'm wondering what you all think about that.
Mm,
So it doesn't have to be, putting rather than taking the pressure off of myself for having to fix it, putting the onus on the folks that are in charge in regards to how they want to address it and what does it say about the organization when the people that are in charge are a very homogenized group.
yeah.
What does that mean? What is their stance? There are tons, for example, I'm in Seattle, tons of arts and arts ed organizations over the summer after George Floyd was murdered rose to social media. We stand with you. We stand for, and the community came for them and said, okay, you say that you support Black people, but how exactly are you doing that besides this post? Can you please look at your track record
Mm,
within the community and speak that? So I think it starts with asking questions. Asking questions about what does this organization stand for? What are its principles? What is its mission statement? And how do they demonstrate those commitments?
yeah.
What actions are they taking?
Mm,
And if they haven't taken action, why is that? these things often, when we're, when we're thinking about confrontation, we're often thinking about them in the sense of tension and anxiety. I often think about worst case scenarios, but just being, oh, it doesn't have to go that way. It doesn't have to be it can be, again, a sense of curiosity. Where do you stand when we're talking about racial justice? Where does this organization stand?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you all? What's the future of this organization when it comes to racial justice?
Yeah.
What do you really believe in? And how do you demonstrate that?
Thank you for that.
I'm seeing a question in the chat. Gina says, what advice would you give on a good way to apologize and not make it about making ourselves feel better for screwing up when we make mistakes from a place of our position or of privilege or bias? That is a really great question. Acknowledge the harm that's been done as best you can. Hold yourself accountable. Promise to do better, and maybe even elaborate on how you will do better, and then leave it be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not easy to do. No one wants to see themselves as a bad person, or as mean, or as racist, or as sexist, or as homophobic, or as transphobic, and yet it's the status quo. So think about it as like, it's a hip hop historian named Jay Smooth, who I highly encourage folks follow. And within his, he's got a video that went viral, how to tell someone that they sound racist. He's got a follow-up TEDx talk where he talks about how to be on the receiving end of being called out or called in for saying something or doing something racist. And he says that we need to think about this like an opportunity to grow. It's like if somebody points out that I have something stuck in my teeth, I'm not going to say, oh my God, I'm not going to freak out. It's like, oh, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for informing me so that I don't look like an idiot. This is the same sort of thing. It doesn't have to be this huge tense moment. It can be as simple as, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for speaking up. I will work to do better. And then work to do better.
Yeah. This engaging with.
He says, I would add understanding that they don't have to accept your apology. For sure.
Yeah.
Because an apology is just words. The way that we actually grow is by doing the work and by showing that we're doing the work. And it's not like going back to that person, here, see what I've done. Do the work.
Yeah.
Which is hard. Sorry, Lashana, you were saying something.
Oh, it's all good. That was good. That was poignant. Like in the thought of this curiosity and the questioning, would I be fair to say that is something that we can bring with us every single space that we're in, and that we should be looking at all of these things in all of the spaces?
Yes, always. Apply a critical racial justice lens, and I would say a critical social justice lens everywhere you go, because these systems affect everything. In the same way that you can't separate your life from politics because politics affects everything that we do, these systems are omnipresent. They are everywhere. So if I go into a building and recognize that there isn't a wheelchair ramp, I want to say something about it. But I have to have that critical lens because I live within a non-disabled level of privilege. And so I don't have to think about that stuff, but I try to as often as I can. Same thing in regards to race. As I enter a space and I notice there are very few people of color, or I'm the only Black person in this room, why is that? Now, granted, a lot of the times that I'm recognizing this, it's also when I'm asked to do a facilitation like this. So they're actually trying to do the work in that moment. But in general, stay curious, stay open, ask questions, apply that lens, that critical lens everywhere. And you'll be amazed, fortunately and unfortunately, you'll be amazed at how many different ways that oppression shows up in our lives.
Yeah. And encouraging the folks that you get to be with too in your community who aren't asking questions to join you in asking those questions, right? Because if we're all asking those questions in those spaces, you can't quiet it as easily, and we have to speak to it, and we have to make change, right? Yeah.
And change doesn't happen because of one person.
Yeah.
It can be sparked by one person, but real lasting change, sustainable change, has to happen on a community level.
Yes. Exclamation point, period, underline. Damon, thank you. Thank you for packing some tools and some knowledge into the pockets of folks today, in the ways that you do. That was our second identity mapping experience, and I want to talk about it because I want folks to think about the different feelings that you had in your body and the different identities that you recognized and spoke to today, and how that will change each time you do it. The ways that you notice this identity is doing this, and it's receiving this, and just how it all fluctuates, and the importance of reflecting on that activity frequently, just as a personal check-in. I was I'm super happy that they are so close together for folks to really be able to touch the differences. You know, it's not like, oh, a couple months ago. No, that shit was yesterday. What did you notice? Right? What did you notice?
Yeah. And I would encourage folks to look up, like, do a Google search for identity circles or identity wheels, and you'll be amazed at how many different versions. Like what I showed is just one version. They get so intricate, and there's so much that, again, that I don't think about because I don't have to think about it until I'm asked to. And for some folks, that activity can be quite triggering, because again, depending on what you write into that circle may shut some doors that will never open again, may lock some doors, may lock you out of opportunities, may lock you out of a country, out of your state, out of the ability to do certain things. So yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Humans, we have a break. We have a big old break. Go feed your bellies, move your body, cuddle your pets. And then we have a little community gathering. And if you can, join via Zoom and not the platform. I pasted that link all over the place. That will enable us to go into small groups. If you can't, so be it. We will do what we can do. And we'll see you all in just a little bit. Thanks again, Damon.
My pleasure. Be well, folks.